Welcome to Heart Smart Conversations with me, Märtha Louise, and my two great friends, Manzetti and Lilli Bendriss.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes, hello.
And today we have a very special person who has actually written this book, What Happens Next Changes Everything. And it's a journey through the subconscious mind, and you create your own reality. Harley Hanson. Lilli, do you want to do a little intro because you know him best?
I know him best, and I know him because he fixed the limo for me for my 70 years birthday. Okay. And you said something that's very classical for you. You said that, somebody owes me a favor because I helped them once and I never ask them to pay when I do a job for people. But you see, no, I could ask to have this car for your birthday. You are an amazing person, and you grew up in a little wild environment, and you have 9 heart surgery behind you, which changed your life, and you are a songwriter and a singer. You are making documentaries. Very exciting, but I would like you to tell your story because it's such an interesting story of not giving up, but take the challenges that come that actually gave you the strength to change your life and do the beautiful thing that you are doing now. So, how did it start? You are born where, Ali?
Basically, I grew up in a small town in Chesterfield, rural England, working class town. We didn't have much, but I guess my mum tried her best. The first trauma, I would call trauma for me, as a understanding my own emotions, was when my dad left when I was 8. And I think I struggled with that, and that created problems through my teens. Got kicked out of 3 or 4 different schools and basically was a problem child. And drugs pretty quick came into the picture. And that was sort of my way to take away the pain or the unhappiness. Left England around 15, 16 and began traveling the world and trying to find out who Harley was.
Your father left you said.
Well, my mum and dad split up. There was a lot of, I think anyone that's gone through a breakup, the 2 parents fight and the only victim is the child, because the child doesn't understand why dad's not there and why mum doesn't like dad no more. And then obviously there was that war between me trying to get time with my dad, fighting for his attention. And then eventually, obviously, my father moved on with another family. And I think that sort of came with me through later on in life, and that's what gave me psychologically, you could say, of feeling alone and constantly trying to recreate myself to get that acceptance or that understanding.
So you lived a little wild life for some years in your youth. What changed it?
The first thing was I lived in many different countries and experienced different environments. In the beginning, it was like I wanted to be seen and heard. I was very bullied as a child at school, daily. I was the kid that came to school that had no nice clothes. I had long hair because my dad was a biker. I was always the one that was getting beat down. And obviously I would rebel, and then I would get kicked out of school.
Yeah.
And then I fell into this, I wouldn't say a criminal world, but I fell into a world with different walks of life, trying to find acceptance, trying to get respect, trying for people to look up to me. And obviously we can all fall into that trap. And it came to a point where in 2008 I was living in Norway and my heart stopped. And to be honest, the main reason for that is from many years of drug use and steroids, a combination.
Yeah, because you were training quite hard.
I was bodybuilding, I was doing kickboxing, MMA, I was working the doors. I was doing everything I can to be bigger, faster, harder.
Yeah.
And that was the mindset, it's a primitive mindset, but that's when you're in that environment and you are surrounded by people with reputations and people with names, you automatically become your environment. You want to be like them. You want to be respected. You want to be feared. And I think that's what happens to a lot of youths that go into the criminal world or to the drug world. They're trying to find a place where they belong, that they can be accepted.
Their clan. Yeah.
Then
the heart stopped.
Yeah, I got an AV block 3.
What does that mean, AV block 3?
Basically means that the electrical signals from my brain, when I'm relaxed, stop telling the heart to beat. My heart stops. They put in a pacemaker in Fredrikstad to keep me alive. And obviously I knew they're laying in the hospital. That's something had to change. So my mum came from England to see me. You know, we thought this was it. You know, this was the end. And I was laying there and I was thinking, where am I? Who am I? What have I become? And I thought, well, if I die right now, that everything that I've ever dreamed about, whether it be music, film, falling in love, having children, all of the things that I wanted, I've never done. And it's something just clicked inside me. I just knew I had to move away. I had to start again. And I came to this understanding that in here, everything's going to die with me. But out there, at least it has a chance. So I had to reinvent myself again, be creative, and most of all, get the tools that I needed to accomplish the things that I needed to accomplish, which at the time was impossible. I didn't know anything about singing, filming, or anything.
So what did you do?
Well, first I bought a guitar and sat on YouTube for many weeks or many months, and I learned, obviously, to play guitar. Had a lot of time alone, and I was studying psychology, child psychology mostly, because I wanted to understand myself, why I was being this destructive person at the time, why I felt so alone. When I went into the psychology, I started understanding behavioral patterns and how the subconscious can be programmed from your childhood and how your environments affect everything we are. And then the brain is on an autopilot. So first of all, I needed to understand who I was and how I could recreate myself. And that turned out pretty good in the end, because obviously I worked for 16 years in child services, helping kids with emotional problems. So I think my experience as a child and growing up and my teens and sort of the education part, put that together, I believe I had a unique kind of a formula to help youths in care. And I did that for a long time.
That's amazing that you managed to turn that round into, or your pain became your greatest asset. Yeah.
And I think, we've talked about before, but life's challenges will just come, and when they come, it's back to back to back. It's always, one thing after another. And it's not until you're really broken that I think that's your tool. Most people can just lay there and give up and say, I'm done. But whereas I don't know where it comes from, but I feel, okay, here we go again. Let's just see how we fix this problem. And I think that's where I sort of got that first drive of energy from.
What happened when you endeavored into music? Where did that take you? What happened?
Yeah, I think music, first of all, it was kind of, I was a little bit sentimental, because as a young person, I was very, how can you say, no emotions. I was a bit of a tough guy, showed myself to be tough. Obviously, inside, I was a little boy just wanting a hug from his mommy, probably, but, or father. But the music was my way of saying, like, again, what was in here, in here, it was my way of saying to my family at first how I feel. So I wrote, the first album I did, I just wrote basically telling my family how I felt in a kind of secretive way, because I didn't want to seem soft. And I released the album, and it went really well. And then I started working on another album, and I started hiring musicians, because obviously I was working. And then I got the chance to go to America on tour, and I did something in Norway called Good Morgen Norge. And then I went to the US on tour and basically just promoted Harley Hanson, the music. And that was 3 albums ago.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the songs that really touched me, where you're singing to your daughter.
Yeah.
And it is so good. And the words are like you are sitting there, and wow.
People have misunderstood me over the years, and I think it's important that I get that out there. But some people make music with the drive they want to be famous, or they want to see their name in lights. Don't get me wrong; it's a dream, but it's not important. And in life, you don't get your dreams; you get what's important. And what was important for me was that I wanted to tell people how I feel, my family, my children. I made songs about political issues like the war in Iraq and Syria, humanity. I made songs about the psychology of who we are as human beings, that we all have this devil inside, and it's always you versus you. That's life, you know?
Yeah.
So I've made songs about all these issues. And I've not done that to sell 1 million downloads. I've done that to get my point out, because that day the pacemaker turns off or Harley Hanson is not here no more, the most important thing for me is my children can go to YouTube, type in Harley Hanson, and they go, wow, that's what Daddy stood for.
Yeah.
That's why I do music. So when people say, oh yeah, but you didn't sell 20 million records, did you? I say, but that wasn't my goal.
No, I understand. And then you went into filmmaking.
Still doing it.
Yeah, you're still doing it. And the little film I saw was a film about Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
That's correct.
Yeah. And you are very occupied now to find out what is really our background. The historians, are they telling us the truth? Or is there another truth behind? Because you find this enormous masterpieces of buildings that how could people so many thousand years ago, how could I build them? And this is like a mystery that goes away from the daily living and your song. So you have gone to a little bigger existence of where do we come from? What are you doing here? Where do we go when we leave?
Obviously, it's a process.
Yeah.
You know, first it was to find myself, and then it was a process to understand psychology about how my mind works, why I have the feelings I have, and how can I be a better person. And then obviously I went a lot into occultism, paranormal. I studied all this, and then I studied ancient religions and texts. Modern day, we call it the law of attraction, but that's like 1% of the information. But when I started digging and understanding the power of the mind and how the universe works and quantum physics and quantum mechanics, I was getting all this knowledge in, and you know, it's kind of an overload. I feel like my brain or I am not acquitted enough to understand everything, and I'm filling in the dots as I go. And on this journey for the last 8 years, it sort of came down to the point where, okay, so I believe that human history is not what we're told. I believe there's more to the human being than what we know.
Yeah.
And I think that what I'm doing now is putting the dots together.
Yeah.
Not only from an historical point of view about ancient sites, what they were, who built them, but also our own human history. What are the fundamentals or the basis of all religion and all belief system? Because I in my research, I found there is a very small line between mythology, religion, and history.
Yeah.
And I think what I can say without going into great in depth, obviously on this podcast, it's not about that, but 99.9% of what we know is misleading, incorrect information. So I feel like it's my personal job or calling now. Before it was music.
Yeah.
Then it was TV.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, but there again, I told you previously I was in hospital again not so long ago, because obviously I still have heart issues that come and go. It's been tough. And I got to that point again. Okay, you have all this knowledge inside your head. You have been to all these places. You're going to all these places. What happens if Harley dies now, right now?
Yeah.
This knowledge dies with me. So I'm there again. At least out there it has a chance.
Yeah.
But in here it goes with me. So now it's like the drive is make documentaries. Let's get this knowledge out there. Let's, most of all, to teach my children.
Yeah.
And anybody else that benefits from this knowledge along the way, then I'm just happy to share it.
Because it's controversial, the story that you are telling. But more and more people are telling the same story. it's a change scientifically in the understanding of our background. So I really hope that you will continue, because it creates discussions. You can agree and disagree, but it raises your awareness to start to think outside the box and wonder and are curious about, is it really so? Because I think we very often go like on autopilot. And
Autosuggestion,
yeah, autosuggestion. And when you come in with this new knowledge for many people, they start to think and they start to discuss. This is what happened when I started with the power of the spirit in Norway like 20 years ago, that in the beginning we were only ridiculed, and then little by little people dared to tell their stories of having experienced things that could not be explained in a rational way. And people started to talk, people started to come forward. So, and that, of course, is media, it's TV, so it reaches many people. But I felt that this TV program, that the TV company was so brave giving out there, take a chance. That kind of, it started something in people, and it's much more open now, even if Norway is not the most open country.
It takes time, and I think that's a lot of restrictions in Norway.
Yeah, there are.
All you need is that little spark.
Yeah.
You know, if you put a spark and get people to start questioning.
Yeah, start questioning
their own mortality, or the information that has been passed down to them. You know, it's like, as you know, you give someone a little spark, and all of a sudden you've lit a fire under them.
Yeah.
You know, it comes around.
Yeah. Have you experienced criticism for the thing that
Everything, all my life.
All your life.
And I think that's the driving point. That's, you know, you asked me earlier about the earlier years, and I'll never forget. I don't know how old I was, probably just started secondary school, so that would be videregående in Norway. So I think I was like 12, and I was, you know, I don't know if you can say this, but I was a little SHIT. I was not the best child to be in the classroom, you could say. I'll spell it just in case there's a younger audience. And I remember the teacher took me aside one day and like really slammed me up against the wall and said, "Harley Hanson, you're going to be nothing and you are nothing."
Wow.
And I looked at him, and in the moment I was like angry, you know, of course. I was like, you know. And then I sort of went home, and I was young, and to process this information the way I did, I think it was kind of cool. And I was thinking, well, okay, you obviously went to school to be a school teacher, but you don't know everything. You're working here every day and then going home to the same place. You went to school in the same areas that you're working, so what have you done with your life? And you're working all year to have a 14-day holiday in England anyway. And I was thinking, there's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah.
I've never said to myself, I want to be rich. Should have maybe a few times, but I've always said I want to experience. You know, I want to travel the world. I want to meet people. I want to live different walks of life. And then some of those walks of life got me into a lot of trouble. And some of those walks of life could have ended bad. But they all made me who I am today. And I think that's what's important, is experience. You become your environment, but if you can imagine putting yourself in different environments, you can start to choose and pluck out the bits that you want, like Lego blocks, and build yourself a better you. And that's a process.
When I listen to your story, I hear like an unconscious part of your life where you cut off all emotions, you went into drugs, to maybe even dim that even more, or like
drug use was to take away the pain. Because I had, at that time in my life, obviously I had no psychological understanding. Yeah,
exactly. And then I suddenly see this shift where you become conscious.
Yeah.
And you suddenly experience life. You experience life. You don't just survive anymore.
No.
And how is the life now where you are more conscious compared to before? And how has that... Because I also find that you have found your self-worth, your love for yourself in a different way now than you had before? And how has that changed your way of perceiving yourself and life? And how has that changed your life?
Wow, good question. To be completely honest, people say that ignorance is bliss. You know, you see people living their lives in this kind of a program. They go to work, they pay their taxes, they go to sleep, and that's it. And when you start studying and learning about the things that we all have in common here, you could say, I think the world can be a lonely place. I think I feel, personally, I sometimes I feel alone because I don't have the knowledge. I can't just share with random people. They'll put me in a crazy place, or they will just shake their head and say, you know, you're one of them. You know, it's a very, in Norway, I think it's a very selective environment, which we've talked about before, but not just in Norway, I think worldwide. You know, when you start going against the core program of people, which is our history, which is who we are and what we are.
Because the history is kind of written in stone somehow.
Yeah, and the same with religion. You know, if you talk to a religious person and try to get them to see things from another perspective, it's very hard. I mean, I'm not a religious person in that sense. I have my beliefs, and I've studied the religions I need to study, and I've come to the personal conclusion that yes, there is more out there, but we're not in any kind of level to understand it. And what we do know is 1% of the truth. But yet we have wars and we have dividity over these beliefs. If it's not religion, it's politics. If it's not politics, it's race. If it's not race, it's gender. It's always going to be something. Football even, you know, of sports, there will always be this dividity. And I think to overcome that is the biggest challenge. So I think you feel alone when you have all this knowledge. And as you asked, Lilli, I have people sort of put me down, and all my life from school, I did music. You can't sing. You're wasting your time. You're crazy. Okay. And then I went into producing my own. I wanted to have my own TV show at the time called Paranormal Seekers, and I went to every TV company in Norway like 20 times, and they were kind of thought it was funny that I would not give up. I was just calling in and just turning up at TV2 and TV Norway and trying to sell my projects, and I wouldn't stop. And when I got so many no's and so many doors, I was like, okay, I got to learn film production. It took me 9 months to sit in front of YouTube and learn film production. Then all of a sudden I'm producing everything myself. So I was like, okay, mission accomplished. So, you know, I think every closed door you meet is, for me, it's just like, okay, here we go again.
Window?
Here we go again. You know, I hear this voice in my head. It's just, okay, can't stop, won't stop.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And how has that way of living, how has that changed you as a person? That way of understanding that a no is a closed door there, yes, but there must be another one that's open. And what is that door?
Well, if I look at it this way, if I can, for somebody that's come from nothing, from somebody that has had little intelligence at an early age, because I was too busy doing other things. I think for me to come to where I am today, if I can do it, everyone can do it, basically. You know, and I think my only perspective is now is I just want to refine the knowledge I have so I can present it in a way that people will understand on a very systematic but neutral level. I think that would give me the feeling of accomplishment, that I've managed to get it from here out there again. And all the ridicule and all the people that I've ever said, you know, Harley, you can't do this or you can't do that, I just say, if they're listening to this, thank you very much. It means a lot to me because you created this, you know. And I think that's what people need to do. Your pain is your power. And people need to, when they feel alone and in that dark place and they feel like they want to give up, that's the turning point. You know, you've got to just say, okay.
How did you come to that revelation that pain is your power?
Because I felt it so many times, and I felt like giving up many times. It has been hard, and I felt like, okay, and you know what? When people say you're alone, you really are alone, because it is all in here. You know, nobody else knows what you're feeling. You can talk about it with your friends. You can tell your family, and they will give you sympathy and understanding. But the truth is, 99.9% of people are quite happy to hear your problems because it makes their problems seem less than their own.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, so, you know, and when you go to bed at night and you're laid there, and that's when all the problems come. That's when all the shit comes, the darkness. There's only you that can process that and deal that. There's nobody going to help you. There's no magic pill. There's people that can guide you and give you advice. But at the end of the day, it's you versus you. I've said it before. And you've got to learn to find a way to say, okay, this is it. I'm keep standing. Because, you know, life is very simple. You're going into a storm, you're in a storm, or you're coming out of the storm. And the storms will keep coming.
Yeah.
And every time these storms come, you've got a choice. Are you going to let it keep you down there, or are you going to get up? Because every time you get up, you learn something new, or you become stronger, or you become more aware. You know, it's like when people say, okay, I didn't get the job. And it's very hard to say, but I'm like, good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can you say that, Harley? Because something better is coming, you know?
Yeah.
Or my girlfriend left me. Okay. You know, let's see what comes next. You know, so I think it's all about perspective. And in the moment, that's the present moment is all we have, of course. With the past is what's made us. It's programmed us. Tomorrow is not here yet. And we're running around, as Lilli said, in this autopilot controlled by our emotions and what our emotions, our experiences. So everything that's happened in the past has made us who we are right now. And if we don't do something right now, tomorrow is going to be exactly the same. The same problems, the same feelings. So all you have is the present moment. So, and it's not easy, but we have to try to control and regulate ourselves in the present moment and say, okay, enough's enough. I got to change it, because you can't change people. You can change the way you look at them. You can change your perspective of them, but they have their own issues and their own beliefs. You can try to guide them, but at the end of the day, it's like I said, it's you versus you. You're alone. You really are alone.
You're alone, but you don't have to be lonely.
That's right. You have you. And I think if you get that strength, that inner strength, man, Lilli knows. I talked to Lilli many times you know, as a friend, just to get some outside perspective, you know, obviously. And there's been many times I've sort of, you know, I'm a grown man. I've cried myself to sleep. And I want to do everything that's important to give my kids a better life. And then the next morning I'll go to the mirror and I'll
wipe your tears away.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
And you know what? Perseverance. In the looking back now, every time an issue has come, every time everything's gone dark, this is it, losing everything, doom and gloom. There's just that little voice in here that says, come on, you're not done yet. And we'll get through it.
That's very inspiring. And also you said you were in child services and in child psychology. You studied. And how has that perspective on life and working with people, because I know you work with some challenging people and kids. And how has that helped you in your journey?
First of all, I feel like it's a tool. It's like a kind of a karma. I see things from not the normal, what you can call educational perspective. I mean, in Norway, we have like a kind of a caring plan. It's hard to translate back to English now. We have a caring plan and a way to systematically rehabilitate these children. But we have like one caring plan for all kids. And it doesn't work like that. You got to be outside the box, because every kid is unique. Every kid has their own trauma. And, you know, it's like, I laugh because every employer I've ever had, they've always said, Harley, you don't really fit into the box, but you do a good job. But, you know, we're in Norway now. You know, for me, it's personally, it's been like a challenge. It's like, okay, the system has given up on them. And 5 years from now, they're either going to be in jail or on the street. So this is a challenge to me, is can I change them?
Around.
Yeah, turn it around. So that's been my driving point for that. But from the other side is from looking out from in, nothing to do with me, but I see so many young people lost, so many kids turning to drugs, turning to the criminal lifestyle, or becoming homeless, or not necessarily noticed. A lot of kids have depression that go unnoticed. There's a lot of people out there that, because of social media, have psychological issues and feel pain, or feel like the need that they have to be more than they are because that's what so-and-so's doing on Instagram or Twitter. So I think from a society point of view, I think everything's causing a lot of issues for kids. And my experience is being one to try to help and give them the tools that they need to fix themselves. I think that's the key here.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell them how to be or what to do. I can show them, and they have to make a choice. But it's levels of awareness. You know, it's like, how can you say, the child on the street that's using heroin, for example, it's a very traumatic thing to see, but you can kind of understand. Most people walk past and say, oh, that's a drug user. Come on, we'll keep the kids away and we'll go. Whereas I will look at it and say, well, that's someone that's been through a lot of trauma, had a bad childhood, and this is what's taking away their pain. If only we could give them the tools to get their life back. You know, the awareness of not where they went wrong, but what they can do to turn it around. It's not easy. Life is hard. And some people get broken. And like I said, you are alone, and there's nobody there to put the pieces back together. And if you don't understand that, you're going to be thinking like, oh, poor me. It's not fair. Why is life so hard? Why did this happen to me? Why? You know, so many whys and so many negative emotions. And they automatically can put the blame out there. But the problem is there's nobody out there because it's all in here. So I think that's the challenge, is to teach people that you've got to start here and inside and build up slowly. Baby steps, like little baby steps, like Harley feet steps, baby small ones. So, but yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, very inspiring to listen to you, Harley, as
Very.
always.
Yeah, I think what is really inspiring for me is that even if all doors are closed, there's always a way.
Yeah.
And never give up on yourself. And what you're supposed to be doing here.
Yeah, I think it's like you can't remember what people say, and you can never really remember if you go to therapy, what your therapist said, and you can't remember everything. But there's one little thing I think is kind of cool, that sometimes when things are really bad and it's a really dark place, just close your eyes and listen. And this is what's crazy. Just close your eyes and listen. What do you hear?
Inside.
Hear your breath.
So if you can hear that, that means there's still time. You know, you can change everything. And I think that's what people forget.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
So we every week we have like an exercise that people can do till next week that we can practice every day. Would that be your exercise to share with everybody?
Yeah, I think it would be a good one. You know, just close your eyes and just and think about you have whatever. If it doesn't have to be negative, but I think majority of people are struggling with issues, whether it's economical, health issues, relationship issues. There's always an issue. Like I said, there's always a storm. And I think that if you can just take that moment to look inside and that reminder, and I think that's a great way, because just that one breath reminds you that you're still here. You can still change. There's still time. You don't wish life was easier. Never. Wish you were better. Because that's the little trick there. You've got to be better. If you're going to go somewhere you've never been before, you've got to be a different person. So I think that's the challenge, is that we just got to see what tools we need and keep going, basically. Don't stop. Can't stop.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring.
Yes, and good luck with everything you are doing.
It's going to be okay.
We will follow you. We will follow you.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
If you have any questions, please write to us on Instagram at Heart Smart Convos and DM us. You can subscribe on all podcast platforms for our podcast, so please do that. We love 5 stars, just a hint.
Twice if you want.
Yes. And we'll see you next week. Take a breath.
Art Smart Conversations.